Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the scripts with the digital workspace inner workings.
Welcome, Tom, back to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. Do you want to introduce everyone to yourself and your new venture?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me on again. Really excited to be on and catch up. So I think we spoke about this previously briefly, but I'm running a company called Empowering.Cloud. We're focused on Microsoft Teams, modern work, and it's spanning a whole bunch of community work and then some premium offers for Microsoft partners and for ISVs, OEMs who want to get deeper into the space, basically.
Great. And we talked about the community-driven approach. How have you found that, the sort of adoption of people coming to the community and your plans for next year?
Yeah, that's super important to me. So the whole point of this was really to be community first, because I don't think the speed of this cloud world, you can't keep up on your own. It is a community effort. And I've always done a lot in the community. So at the moment, we have about 3,500 people signed up, which is really, really good. It's still a fraction of kind of the stuff I do on LinkedIn, the stuff I do with my email list, but it's engagement that I'm really looking for. The big numbers are great for marketing, but the reality is, are we delivering value to people? And we've had 24 subject matter experts, MVPs, MCMs, people from the industry doing these 15-minute briefings, and they're all contributing those to the community. So that's a really big one for me, is people are giving up their time and expertise to share with the community. And that's the plan, is to keep building that out. We're adding a forum capacity at the moment where we'll have more direct engagement between people as well, which we think is really good value. But yeah, early days, we're just coming up to a year. So for a year, in terms of where we started to where we are now, I'm really pleased.
And is that community, does it have like a tiering thing, like a free level and a paid level of that, or is your sponsors paying for the...
Yeah, the kind of the model is 90% sponsor-backed free content. So that's the thing. We really want to be like, not just lip service to community, but actually deliver loads of value there. But there is a tier where Microsoft partners or vendors can pay us anywhere from about £500 to £1,000 a month, depending on headcount, to get learning paths, certificates, office hours with me and the team, ask their own private questions. So no hard sell there. But for those who want to take their entire team, for example, pre-sales teams is a very common one. They want to get them up to speed. They want to know what's going on in Microsoft Teams, and they want to stay up to date. We can put them on learning paths, and the system will proactively push them video content via email or via bot message, all sort of 15-minute or less, short, snappy content. And that's been really popular with partners who are struggling to keep up, just the same as we all are.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you say system, have you built something?
Yeah. So I work with a fellow MVP, Tom Morgan, who does all the clever stuff. So I can't take any credit for it. But yeah, we looked at various learning management systems, and we couldn't find anything that quite fit the bill of what we wanted. So we've built a platform on Azure. I mean, we're using various component parts. So we use Auth0 for authentication. We're using Wistia for video hosting. We're using Intercom for some of the communications. And we pull all those pieces together, and that creates a platform where we have ultimate control over the user experience. So we can, for example, be very granular about who gets access to which content. We can see, we have Power BI reporting built in, so we can see who's engaged, what they're engaged with, and that's really useful to say, are we delivering value? But we also have research papers that we build in on Power BI, so things like Teams bar comparisons, operator kit comparisons, and we couldn't find anything that would do that kind of, how many LMSs let you embed Power BI? Well, none, because it's a very niche use case. So we ended up rolling our own. It's been hard work. Development is never as well. Anybody who does it knows that it's always more than you think it is. But I'm really glad we own our destiny in terms of the platform.
Yeah, that's important. I hear what you're saying. I mean, we ended up building something ourselves now, just because there's lots of nice tools that do nice things, but you find that the integration between those different tools to each other, using something like Zapier or whatever it is, will always be limited.
It is, yeah. And you're depending on your use case. If you're doing a very generic course, lots of these platforms are built for more B2C scenarios as well. So we want, high security with Auth0. We want Office 365 login. We want LinkedIn login. No LMSs care about LinkedIn login because it's not a use case for them. And the things like the Power BI and the Azure stuff. And now I'm super excited because we're starting to play with the AI engines in Azure. Now this is a way out, but we have all this information from the subject matter experts. We have all the transcripts. We have all the content. In theory, we can run an AI engine over that and have a dedicated data set to start answering questions with a bot. So early days, we're still playing with that, but I'm really excited about the potential of this evergreen knowledge being more accessible to people.
Yeah, it's that boat. What's that analogy? All waters float all boats, or higher waters float all boats. It just feels like there's always something pushing everything up and up and up, and your barrier to entry to do something is getting lower and lower. But you know what's going on, you get drowned.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because like everybody's potential is going up, but everybody's expectations are going up as well. So you've got to keep up. But yeah, we couldn't have done, anything like this even 5 years ago in terms of the maturity of the cloud platforms we're building on and the level, the amount of development you can do. Tom's leading all this from a development point of view. It would have been a team of people, but because we're leveraging cloud services and loads of Azure stuff, you just plug it all together, really, which is probably doing them a slight disservice. But it's if you had to build all of this from absolute scratch, it would be a massive project.
Yeah, for sure. So we were chatting a little bit before we started around Copilot, and I was curious to get your thoughts on that and where it was going.
There's mad excitement around Copilot at the moment. Obviously, Microsoft are riding the AI hype train like absolute pros in terms of everything is Copilot. There's Copilot in Windows, there's Copilot in M365, there's Copilot in GitHub, Copilot in security. It's always becoming a bit of a meme now in terms of everything has Copilot. There's not been a lot of hands-on outside of Microsoft. They have a couple of hundred customers field testing it. So in terms of hands-on, like I've had hands-on with some of the team's premium stuff, which is AI driven but not Copilot. But just to be clear, I haven't had hands-on, but lots of my Microsoft friends have. And obviously, I've done a lot in ChatGPT, OpenAI. Like I've been using the tools outside, which essentially is the same type of experience. I'm really excited about it. Like Microsoft people have really good feedback. We're yet to see how Microsoft price it, which is always going to be interesting. But the potential of all the knowledge you have in M365, your documents, your emails, your meetings, your meeting transcripts, being able to say to AI, oh, remind me, what have I caught up with last on Ryan? It could span our chat, our email, and our previous meetings. Like that is so powerful and just a massive productivity boost. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah. As you've said, I've used ChatGPT a lot. It's part of my workflow now. And about the sort of drowning thing, I think there's so many people that are not in sync with this that they are going to drown when it catches up with them.
And it's difficult with AI as well because it's flawed at the moment. Like it's not perfect. It's 80% of the way there, and like non-technical people understanding that might be tough because it's like, well, either it works or it doesn't. It's like, well, no, it kind of helps you, but you can't trust it 100%. You need to vet it. It's like, well, like that kind of grey area of the whole hallucinations and imperfectness of it. I think like your typical user is going to struggle with that, and I think we'll see a lot of, unfortunately, people generating stuff out of generative AI, not even reviewing it and just posting it. Take my Word doc, make it into a PowerPoint, I'll throw it out to my boss, and like, you haven't checked, does it actually make sense?
Yeah, no, well, I've seen that. We had a guy working for us. He sent it to us and he's like, I wrote this doc last night and it took me all night. And I was like, you do realize that some of these sentences are like not even sensible.
Yeah.
Like, they write the sentence makes sense on its own, but like the paragraph doesn't make any sense. Like, did you generate? He said, yeah, okay, whatever it was.
Well, where I have found it super valuable, we take our briefing videos and we run it through for summary. So we take a 15-minute video transcript, and that is amazing because we used to do that manually and it took ages, and it will give you bulleted summary. Again, you have to tune it, you have to watch the video, but it will get you, I'd say 80%, 70% of the way there, which is a huge time saving.
Yeah. In fact, go back to our sort of automation challenges. So I was trying to do something with Otto where it'll transcribe the meeting, but then I want to run that through ChatGPT to give me the summary and the bullet points and actions, because Otto doesn't do that part very well.
No, there's quite a few tools coming in that space. So Audio Codes have one for Teams. Like there's one called Crisp AI, which was a noise suppression app that now does AI summaries. Gong in the sales space. And they're all trying to take meeting content and provide you minutes actions. So I think that'll get better over time. But it's going to become the norm. Like at some point in the future, we'll just be like, well, obviously meetings generate action lists and summaries. Like you don't do that. The tech does that for you.
Yeah. Now, my dream, which I mentioned in one of my other episodes, is that while you're having the meeting and you're discussing, like, we need to research this thing, the AI has picked up on that. It's already done the research, and before you finish the meeting, it's already told you what the answer.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, the thing that I'm really excited about is it could be like a really good PM sidekick. Like people always commit to things in meetings, and then you have the next meeting and they don't commit again. Like being able to get a list of actions, put it into a planning app, like follow up before the next meeting to be like, you committed to this last meeting, the next meeting's in 3 days. Like that thing that good PMs do really, really well, a lot of that could be assisted by AI, and we're not going to get that thing where we just have loads and loads of meetings saying the same thing, because it'll just be like, well, the same action list as last time.
Yeah, and the I mean, there is that thing already inside of Exchange or Office 365 where if you've certain emails where you might have said something or commented on something, it'll come back and say, did you remember to reply to this email?
Yes. Yeah.
Task or something like that. So
that's the technology starting to come in. Yeah. You'll see it on LinkedIn as well. It'll be like, you said this 3 days ago. Do you need to reply? That kind of thing. Like that's very early use cases of that AI trying to pick out actions and commitments and timings.
Yeah. So I think it's exciting. If you had to sort of, do you ever feel that some of the stuff will be included in the Microsoft pricing, or do you think they're going to charge?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any insider knowledge, nothing public, but it'll be extra for sure. Like the way they're positioning it, it's not going to be bundled. And there's a couple of clear reasons for that. One is this is very computationally expensive, so Microsoft need to pay for that compute. They've just dropped, 10 billion into OpenAI. That's not charity work for them. They're looking to make a profit at some point, but also like they've bundled so much value into Office 365 and 365 over the time. They're now looking to add revenue. So you look at things like Teams Premium, it's an extra SKU. That some of the Teams Phone, Teams Rooms, they're upselling things there. They will want to upsell this, and I'm paying for a few different AI tools at the moment. Like there's obvious demonstrable value there. If you're saving somebody even half an hour a month, you can start to justify a number for what that saves you. If you start to think about how AI could span departments and give you insights, like things like Viva Sales or Contact Center, you're talking about really big value there. So yeah, there'll be a cost to this. I'm not sure what the model will be yet, but we'll probably find out. It's Microsoft's end of FY this coming up, and then July is their new FY, so we'll start to see the targets and the objectives in July.
Yeah, I wonder if they're not going to. So one thing I have seen, obviously, there's a lot of GPUs shortages.
Yes.
And I wonder if
that's why Nvidia is now worth $1 trillion.
yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft comes out with an acquisition in that space.
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, it'll be a very hotly contended space, because you look at Nvidia are running the show there. AMD have done a lot of work there. Intel are being caught pretty flat-footed. But you can't buy an Nvidia or an AMD necessarily without a really big checkbook. And do you want to? The other thing that I think would come up really fast is the anti-competitiveness. It's all very clear AI is going to be the future of a lot of things. Do they want a chipset vendor living with a Google or an Amazon or a Microsoft? I think that would be a challenge to get through the competition commissions, to be honest.
Yeah. When I say acquisition, I was thinking of a big player, but maybe a small player, very much like what Apple did when they started their chip stuff again. They bought a couple of small companies.
Oh yeah, maybe some augmentation. And obviously Microsoft have a bit of a hardware history with Xbox and with some of their devices, so they're not total strangers to hardware. Apple's the interesting one. I wonder there hasn't been a lot from them yet, but they're doing some pretty amazing things in the processor space with their M chips. Like at some point, there'll be some cool stuff coming from them in this space as well.
Have you had a look at their headset?
Only the press releases, obviously, but interesting. I mean, very high price point, which immediately niches it out to the very high end. I love the fact that they've got the whole you don't need glasses, you put lenses in it type thing. But I mean, Gen 1 of anything like this will be the get one to market, so we'll see how it lands. But I think it's interesting that kind of technology has been around. Microsoft had HoloLens, Google had Glass. what Apple are very good at doing is not being first, but then doing a really crafted experience. And I suspect that'll be them again. They'll be like, it will be slick. It will have consumer applications. So it will definitely move the market forward. But I think that whole meta augmented reality thing has taken a backseat to AI for most people at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think the AR VR use cases are still there, and I think they'll be solved. But I think the AI stuff is far more interesting, and I think it hits more people.
Yeah.
If you think about being a PowerPoint monkey or the Excel spreadsheets you had to do, that kind of stuff, that you can just ask.
Yeah, that's most, like, it's most knowledge workers get a benefit, don't they? Whereas there's only a subset of people that want to wear a headset and do that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And if I look at, just from sort of that use case of we're having the meeting, we're discussing something, and the AI is already doing it. The other piece to that is what you mentioned around the sort of business process improvement pieces. So, you're writing a document, you're writing the gist of the document, that gets generated into a full document, or not even forget that, just summarized to a succinct way that everyone can understand, and multi-language, that kind of stuff. That's the huge value piece. And then that changes your conversation with using translation services, with using legal services, tax and all that kind of stuff.
The space that I think is going to get disrupted the quickest is contact center or kind of customer contact, because it's really interesting. It's such an obvious use case for AI, which is you as a customer are trying to get a problem solved like 50, 60, 70% of the time. It's the same type of question, open hours, bank balance, whatever it is. It's perfect for AI to solve those problems. And it's human-wise, it's expensive, and the bar of quality there is challenging in terms of user experience. Like, it's not difficult for AI to be a better experience than your typical human agent. So I think that'll get disrupted really heavily. But also contact center vendors typically charge $150, $120 a seat. How does the AI bring a lot of the cost out of that? Do they try and charge for a virtual agent? Do they charge for resolution? It's really interesting. But I think you look industries that are getting disrupted quickly, that will be one of them. Someone will come up with an AI that can answer 50% of the questions that sits in front of the people, and it starts to answer them, be that chat, be that voice. And that's an immediate saving to the organization and probably a customer sat improvement as well.
Yeah, and I don't think you necessarily lose the person in that process, but if they can answer 50% of the questions and do it via an easy interface, whatever that is. But then when you don't get your answers to those questions and you talk to an agent, that agent's got more time.
Yeah, the agent will become a high-skill job, not a low-skill job. It will be like, these people are the problem solvers. Like, they're the people that can help customers when the technology can't help them. So you'll need less of those people, but they'll be absolutely higher skilled. And also part of that team or that role will be putting content back into the engine to solve it for next time. So like, oh, this is how I solved that problem. So the AI gets better and better. So yeah, humans in that scenario don't go away, but they do get radically reduced numbers wise. And that's been happening already with chatbots and things like that. But I think the fact that this can be done with voice will take it to the next level.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of those AIs do a very good voice synthesization.
Easy to say.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing some demo stuff about a year ago, and none of us wanted to do the voiceover for the demo. And one of the guys just wrote a script and he put it through an AI, and it generated a nice, I think it was an American female voice, or an Australian. It wasn't Australian. I think it was an American female.
Yeah.
And it was great, and a bit of a joke for those the Star Trek people, but it used contractions, which Data couldn't do during Next Generation. But it was good. It was hugely impressive because there was no stuttering. It was nicely spaced, so there was it didn't rush. That kind of stuff was great.
There's a tool we use at Empowering.Cloud for editing. It's called Descript, and it takes a video and it transcribes it to text, and you can then edit the text and that edits the video. So you can take out filler words. So it's amazing, but it also has a text to speech that you train on your voice, and you can type and it will do it in your voice. So, and if you put time into training that, it's really good. Like for things like, you say it should do this rather than it shouldn't do this, you can literally just type the replacement and it will fill it. It's pretty impressive.
Wow, I didn't know that. But that does line up with something else that I heard Apple was doing, where you could record your voice through Apple to preserve it.
Oh, interesting. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I heard that. But basically, there's like 15 very odd snippets of things you got to say, and then you can use that. I suppose you can use the voice to speak to somebody else. I guess and obviously as you get older, your voice changes, so you could always record it for
Yeah, and Nuance do that for security, so you can do bank passwords, and a factor is recognizing your voice. So like, there's lots of use cases for that voice signature.
Yeah, we were doing it for password resets, and then I think one of the medical aid companies, I think it's Discovery in South Africa, you can short circuit the whole IVR queue if it's got your voice record in place,
right?
And that's a huge value because going through the stupid IVR systems is
I'm curious now with that voice recognition, how good the AI is as to whether that will become a problem now, because the technology is becoming readily accessible to dupe somebody's voice. Obviously, training those engines, you have to have a large sample set. So for your typical person, not a problem, but maybe for you or I that have hours of content lying out there, it might be a problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw, there was that one influencer. She used an AI to do this, and she was charging something like I don't know, some dollar value per minute, and she made like 70 grand. And of course, because it's an AI, she wasn't doing the interaction with the people.
Yeah.
My expectation is that it went down a pretty sordid route, but
Yeah, I've got a theory on this as well, which is that like, content generation is going to get easier, so you're going to get all these crappy blogs of like marketing people saying top 10 teams tips, bang that on the website, job done. And I think people are going to come back to personalities that they follow rather than content they follow. So it won't be you read XYZ magazine or XYZ blog, it's you read Ryan's post because you know him and you know his opinion. So I think there'll be a resurgence of people looking for individuals for information rather than generically Googling it, because all the top hits are going to be AI gened, perfect articles, but no opinion, no substance, just heavily crafted wording.
Yeah, and that is the vicious circle, because if you go and ask Chat now to go and give you an SEO generated article, it's going to be giving you it's going to be doing that for a whole lot of people. So everyone's going to have the same articles at the top. So it's really going to be probably the time that you publish it gets you to the top versus the SEO confidence level, let's call it, or ranking. So I can believe that. I could see YouTube and live streams and Twitch and all those things becoming more watched because people want the real.
Yeah, they want to hear from that person. They want to hear something real, not something generated.
Yeah, exactly. And I do wonder about, are there hidden tags within the generated stuff, specifically voice or image, where you can tell if it's generated or not? Yeah,
there's been governmental talk about, do we need to force the technology companies to do that? I don't know if there are or not, but there are recognition things that you can run text through backwards to say, does it feel generated or not? But they seem to be hit and miss. Even if the government enforced that, the technology's out there now and widely available. The bad actors will use variants of stuff that doesn't do it. So I feel like that ship has sailed. But on the other hand, as it gets, right now you can recognize it. Someone does one of those video generated talking heads. It's the head keeps like moving like this, in a constant circle to make it feel real or whatever. But that will all go away and it will become much more engaging. It does beg the question, like, do we need to have to flag that this is AI generated?
Yeah, because I think people don't realize this, but if you're using generative AI, all that content that you've got is not yours. It's copyrighted already from the source where it was generated from, or something to that effect. Or the engine that generated it doesn't own it, but it's not. You can't really use it commercially. You shouldn't be able to, I think.
Yeah.
So I think you've always, even though if you generate, you still got to now take that generated content and still make it your own. All it's done is giving you volume.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the problem is, what's the definition? Because like, if you use Grammarly to correct your work, I mean, that generates suggested sentences. So is that partially generated? Or is that, where's the line on when does it count as AI generated versus AI assisted versus no AI? Because actually, all your word processors spell check now, that's all AI. So is that AI? Like, it's a hard line to define.
It's a great point, and I think we're going to see some court cases that will probably set those boundaries. And I think, unfortunately, like anything, you mentioned the speed of things progressing, the laws and the policies are nowhere near moving at the same speed.
No. And that's a big conversation I'm having with enterprises at the moment, actually, is they're simultaneously excited about AI and really fearful about what if our data gets leaked into it? What if a lawyer generates a contract partially from AI? Are they accountable for it? Who's accountable? There's a whole bunch of, alongside the excitement, worries about governance and compliance and risk and just a general worry that people are going to over lean on it and not be as creative in their roles. Like, you're paying them to come up with a solution. If they're just using AI, who's that good for, really?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that lawyer thing. So there was actually a case in the States where a attorney was, I think he's been disbarred because he used ChatGPT to generate part of his case submission, whatever, I don't know the legal terms.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT referenced a few cases that didn't actually exist.
Yeah.
Physician picked up on this and said, well, you need to, what happened here? And he said, well, I used ChatGPT. And they said to him, well, you can't, that's basically, I wouldn't say it's fraud, but he got into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. It's a problem, isn't it? Exactly. It's but I mean, the genie's out of the bottle now. We are going to be using this stuff in various ways. We'll find new norms for it. So it's just a case of it's a really exciting time to be alive, in the sense of, I think, again, we're in the middle of the hype cycle, but this feels materially impactful to most people. So it'll be interesting to see where we are in a few years.
Yeah, I mean, unlike with AR and VR, where that was a hype cycle that was always going to burn out.
Yeah,
I don't think. Yeah, I think there's just too much that could happen here.
The other thing that makes me fairly bullish on how impactful it's going to be, if you look at some of the conversations around how fast the compute the compute capability is moving. So to generate ChatGPT 3.5, that data set on the original compute that they used, it was, I think, was it 40 million or something like that? The cost to generate that model is a fortune. And in 2 years, that has dropped to like, a few hundred K, and it'll drop down as the compute gets better. So that will make the model creation more commercially accessible to everybody. And you can see this already. It's very real. I think Bloomberg are taking all their data and they're building a model around their data set. So I don't think you'll have one AI to rule them all, or maybe, who knows, but certainly what you'll have is the AI for all the business questions you've got based on FT and Bloomberg and blah, 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 and they'll own that piece. And you'll have the AI for car parts, and there'll be some tool that somebody builds that has every car part model and how you order them and that kind of stuff. So rather than seeing this one giant AI that wins the race, I think we'll see lots of specialized models, which will be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that one to them all is very much the Skynet or the science fiction view. I mean, there's a lot of books that I've been reading recently, funny enough, and they were written long before this hype cycle. So it's been interesting to read those and be like, hey, these are actually pretty accurate trails of what could be happening. And one of those things was deepfakes, and the other one is a future where people have gotten so used to AIs doing everything for them, they actually don't know how to do anything.
Yeah,
and that's the reality. I think a lot of people, if you look at like writing code, for example. If you look at a developer who started writing in C++ or C or something along those lines, now you get to a .NET C# where so much stuff has been abstracted away.
Yes, you have no idea what the hardware is doing. You're just doing the code that the code says. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's definitely a risk. I think we have to, certainly the next generations, we have to teach them how to use it as a tool, not rely on it. Like I see some schools that are trying to ban it, and I see some schools that are trying to say, okay, this is like Google. Like, we teach our students how to generate a base paper and then they edit it, correct it. Like, that's their task, which I think, with all technologies, we know that banning rarely works. I think the model is help people understand where it's a tool and how they use it so they don't over rely on it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the critical thinking skills, the problem solving skills, the ability to interpret something and see if it's right or wrong is the value.
Yeah.
And I hope we don't go down a route where, because now we've got this ability to generate content, that now you get double the amount of assignments or 10 times.
Yeah, because it should take you half the time. Yeah.
But I think that time will tell. But I think education genuinely has to change anyway. I think that's still an archaic of doing things. That's the old factory mindset.
I quite like Microsoft to give them some credit. This Copilot branding is a really smart branding, which is not the AI does it for you. It's the AI assists you. They're landing well that message, and it really helps them from a training point of view and a tactical point of view that, this is, you are in control of it helping you. You are ultimately accountable for it. You are using it as a tool. And that branding is really spot on for how to position the tool.
Yeah, it's genius, and I liked how you used the word landing just after you said Copilot, which was also.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I was thinking about it yesterday that it is the right way to do it, because often, and we see it even before AI, someone buys a tool and they expect the tool to solve all their problems automatically, magically. How many times have you heard that I bought this tool and it doesn't do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality we should be looking for, is that you've got a tool that helps you get X step ahead with whatever value it is, and you still have to do what you
saving you some of the time, not all of the time.
And we met some guys in Egypt this last week, and I met a radiologist, and I was just asking him, what are your thoughts on AI processing imagery? And he said, it's pretty good, for a chest X-ray, it's like really accurate and it picks up a lot of stuff, but it still misses some stuff.
Yep.
But if it gets to 80% of them and I have to do 20, I'll take it, because
Yeah, or if 80% more people can get access to a chance of that being found, because there's only so many radiologists looking at charts, and you can scale that out, is the other way to think about it.
100%. And he was saying, from a job security point of view, he doesn't feel less secure, he feels more secure, because he's adopted it, he's using it, and he already knows what he has to do to compensate for it.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the Copilot thing. I think it's it's a partnership, much as we overuse that.
Yeah. So anyway, tell me what's going on in your world. What are you excited about at the moment?
Well, Valuu is very exciting for me. So obviously we have rebranded. Well, Digital Workspace First will stay, because it's still a great platform, and we get a lot of good guests, and we talk about stuff that I still care about a lot. So it's Heather and Catherine who's joined us recently. But Valuu is the thing, and it's very much along the lines of what you're doing. So we have, the community thing is going to be a new thing that's recently become a thing, and that's Valuu execs, and that's a lot of CTOs, CIOs that are looking for opportunities to help on a part-time basis as a fractional, businesses, and it could be startup, it could be businesses that are looking to pivot, or it could be the enterprise. And it was actually an interesting thing, just going down this one for a little bit. Someone said to me, but fractionals are only for startups and for small businesses looking to grow. And I said, well, not really, because if you think about it now, and it was to your point earlier about how fast things move, if you're in an organization and you need advice on how to bring machine learning into your ecosystem, you could go and find a big consulting firm or a consulting firm to come and help you. Or you could tap the shoulder of a CTO, CIO equivalent, or C-level person that from your network, who could come in and help you coach and guide and reorganize before you bring those consultants in. So there's still I think there's an option there too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you're right. I mean, you look at the proper consulting, I guess, as opposed to selling big consulting projects, like the idea to come in and provide some expertise on a part-time basis. But there's a win in both directions there, because they're getting visibility of another organization, another use case. Absolutely. I think there'll be more and more of that. And it's really interesting to do it cross-customer. So we do service owner roundtables, and we bring together different verticals. And that's always interesting, because you're bringing someone in healthcare with someone in legal with someone in pharma, and being like, oh, we solved it this way, we solved it that way. So getting beyond your immediate vertical is really interesting as well. And that's a good place for fractional.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of the people that I'm talking to are at that stage of their careers where they've built up multi-industry or multiple vertical knowledge.
Yep.
And they've seen a lot of this transition that we're experiencing, from a big organization or a small organization point of view, and they just want to share that knowledge. They just want to help you. And look, I mean, there's a commercial angle to it too. Don't get me wrong, no one's doing it for free per se, because everyone has to pay their bills. But the opportunities are there to help somebody else, and that's why we've sort of positioned it as stepping on the shoulder of giants, because you don't have to go and learn that stuff, because you can talk to someone who's got the expertise, and you're not going to pay them the full salary or the full wage. You pay them fractionally, which
there's also a whole mentorship part to that, which is beyond just the knowledge, which is they've done it before in a different place, and that the people working with them get value from that relationship as well as just the knowledge and the insight.
Yeah, And we're just looking at, from a value point of view, we're looking just to connect. We're not really looking at the getting involved in the commercial agreements or anything like that. And some guys are willing to do it for equity, like a startup, they'll do equity or instead of being paid and all that kind of stuff. So that's a new thing that's going to be, I'm pushing out that at the moment. And then the core things that I've been focusing on, obviously the advisory work that I do, helping customers find value in their digital transformation projects, either when they're still planning and thinking about what to do, or they've bought something or they've run a project and they're like, we're not seeing any value out of this. Then I come in and help them to figure that out. And so there's still that consultative thing that I do, which I love.
Yeah, we talked before. I mean, that's a never-ending problem, isn't it? People spend, thousands or millions on projects, and they're like, it hasn't quite turned out the way we expected. And often vendors are very excited to sell you the latest thing, but what was the original use case? What was the ROI driving the value out of projects? And as the people get a little bit more cost conscious economics wise, there's more focus on that. And all I see this a lot in the M365 space. We've already bought this stack. We're not using half of it. How do we drive the value of what we're already subscribed to, we're already paying for?
Yeah, and I mean, Microsoft's a great one for that because there's so much stuff in there. So many different products, so many slants on a project. Like, which one is the right one to use? I don't know. Is it Logic Apps? Is it Power Automate? I don't know. It's some of that stuff. And then this is where the SaaS product comes in, which we've built as well. And we're launching that now if anyone's interested. So this is taking the methodology that we use and giving the ability for people to use it themselves. So how do you prioritize the work? How do you pick up on the scenarios you want to address? How do you calculate the value? So from the beginning, like building your business case to the end where you've now run the project or through the project, you're comparing the whole time on what your value driver was and how are you tracking. So that's the part that when I say most excited about, but that was the dream from
taking it from a consulting based engagement to a framework and a system. That's really exciting.
Yeah, and then we've got the little bit of training that goes with that about what's the methodology, what are the things that we think are useful skills for people to have. So we've got about 9 little courses that are going to come out now. So it's this whole little ecosystem of value. And then I was looking
who's the person that's for? Like, what's their role? What's their goal?
So I see it as the consultant person or company that has got a customer and they need to help them with an initiative to find value. So they're planning, they're tracking, and they're realizing the value. So that could be and the consultant could be a one-person business, or it could be a few people, whatever it is, and then you would get into big organizations. I also see it for the system integrator, the managed service provider, someone who's doing customer success, someone who's doing pre-sales, where they are dealing with the client. In fact, I've got an email literally just opened up on my thing before we started a call, where the guy's got a deal. It's a 6-figure deal. He's asking me, like, how do we do a value pitch for this?
Yeah.
And it's,
that's really, really smart, because also one of the biggest problems at the moment is people get sold things, they don't execute on them properly, and 12 months later, because everything's SaaS, right, that they're like, oh, well, we're not going to renew this because we're not seeing the value we thought we would, or we're going to switch to the next SaaS or the next SaaS. So helping your customer on that journey from pre-sale to customer success and having a framework for it is really smart.
Yeah, and that's exactly where. So that's originally I was trying to sell it to the customers, the actual big enterprises. And one of the guys that I spoke to said, no, you've been silly, because that sales cycle is going to be so long. So that's why we're now focusing on the sort of consultant persons. I mean, a customer can come buy it, if they want to. And this is where the ecosystem works quite nicely, because we will have a partner model, and we'll drive primarily through partner. But you could, through the system, request a fractional sort of the value exec, or you could request the advisory person. And for the person who's using the platform, that's a free transaction. Just tell us what the problem is.
Yeah.
We'll come and help you. And then the commercial thing, we'll figure it out as we go, because we just want people, to get the value they're looking for.
Yeah.
Very exciting. So
that's really cool.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. So you've had the same fun I have of all the joys of platform building and developers and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Look, we've got some good guys. They've done some great work, and we've been using a product, a low-code, no-code product called Bubble.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Which
we've built in really quickly. I mean, there are some nuances and that, but that's always going to be your trade-off when you go low-code, no-code.
Yep.
But I can't. If you'd asked me a year ago, what would this thing look like? and I had to have built it from scratch or through a platform the normal way, 2 years later, we'd probably be still building it.
Yes.
Now here we are. It's almost ready. Well, it's in pilot with a few customers already, so it's been used. So when I say it's almost ready, it's literally the last things, like how do you log a support case? How do you add a feature request? It's that stuff we're finishing.
Have a look at Intercom. Intercom's amazing. That's what we use for our support ticketing and chat. It's so awesome. I can't speak highly of that, more highly of that product. It's great.
Yeah, we use that at Hilos. I'm very impressed with that. We're using HubSpot at the moment, but yeah, Intercom's always on my list. It's one of my go-to.
Yeah, we did some stuff with HubSpot. The pricing scales really quickly on that if you want the bells and whistles. That was another thing where we were like, oh, this is good. And then we're like, oh, we want API access. They're like, oh, it's $1 trillion. I'm like, great, thanks.
Yeah. No, we've had that challenge. So we're giving HubSpot a year, because I think I bought it last year, December. And we've looked at a few others. And I've been impressed with the likes of like Zapier, for example. They are just building out some of the most interesting things. So, for example, I used to use Notion as my, like, if I was going to do something, it would go to Notion and sit in a table, and then I would kick off workflows from Notion. They've built that in, that table thing now exists in Zapier. So I wouldn't be surprised in X number of months, because I think it's that close.
Zapier becomes the product as well as the connector.
Yes, I think it takes over a certain space of product.
Yeah, Notion's interesting. I use Notion a lot. Like, it's a bit of a challenge because it's a blank canvas, so you can spend as much time building your system as executing your system, which is one of the challenges. We used Monday for a while. Now we're using ClickUp. Like, none of them are perfect, but ClickUp has a really good mobile experience, so we're quite impressed with that.
Yeah. So this is the new thing. So when we built the Valuu Workspace, which is the SaaS product, we didn't want to get into the whole project management side of things, but you kind of have to, because you're doing governance in a sense. So we built our version of it, trying to keep it as simple as possible. And one of the things that we don't have, which I think we'll have to do, is the mobile experience at some point. But I would rather integrate to something else that does the project management piece and all that.
Yeah, the API coverage on those tools is really good. So in theory, you could pump your actions, tasks, follow-ups out to that third-party system planner, Monday, ClickUp, whatever. That might provide more value to the end customer because they're already living in that world rather than them having to check your tool.
Yeah, exactly. And the stuff we're focusing on is more on the value realization and predictive piece of that, which is a whole different discussion. But it's exciting. We're seeing I'm seeing a lot of it on LinkedIn, funny enough, people looking for these sorts of solutions, and I get a lot of messages there. And I just think it's a case of finding, well, for the users looking for it, is finding the different scenarios that help us to close our problems. Because that's really the trick, is what are all those scenarios and how do you solve them?
Yeah, it's actually your approach is widely applicable. So it's finding the right use cases that are commercially make sense for the customer, for the supplier, like you can drive a result. And the other thing is driving a result in a time frame, because everybody wants things yesterday. So like being able to show customers, we did this thing with Salesforce or Trello or whatever it is, the organization had invested, now they're seeing value out of it, and this was the framework. I can apply that to your project that's slightly different, but the fundamentals are the same. What did you want it for? How do we drive the engagement, the activity, whatever it may be? It's a really exciting space. As
you say, it gets me up early in the morning and it keeps me up late at night. So great. So with your new business, I mean, do you want people to go to Empowering.Cloud, or do you want them to go somewhere else just to have a look?
Yeah, if they're interested in Microsoft Teams and modern work, if they head to Empowering.Cloud, they can log in for free with LinkedIn or an email address, and there's a whole bunch of free content up there from MVPs, MCMs, people in the community. So our whole goal is to keep you up to date on that Microsoft modern work experience. Questions or feedback, hit me there on the forums or the intercom. And yeah, if it's Microsoft partners or vendors or OEMs who want to train their teams and kind of drive that through, then there's a conversation there too. But yeah, I'd love people to check it out, and always looking for feedback.
Super. Well, thanks again for coming on the podcast. It was great to catch up.
Yeah, really nice to catch up. Cheers, Ron.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.